I think that I was trying to fit myself in a box when I first started out, and I was trying to be everything that everyone else wanted. And I was like, I don't love this. And so I just started editing how I liked it.
Hey, welcome to the Beginner Photography Podcast, brought to you by CloudSpot, the easiest way to deliver and even sell your photos online. I'm your host, Raymond Hatfield, and each week I interview one of the world's most interesting photographers so that I can hopefully learn what it really takes to capture beautiful images and compelling stories, and then I share them with you so that you can start to do the same. Today, we have an episode from the BPP Vault. So after years of interviewing world-class photographers, we built up a rich library full of photo tips and tricks that guests share to help you get better at capturing amazing images. With new listeners finding the show every day, these rewind interviews allow for those new listeners to discover the gold photo nuggets of the past and allow long-time listeners to revisit and hear an interview with fresh ears and more hands-on experience to draw from. Now, in today's interview, we are chatting with birth photographer Jen Pierce about how to deal with the unpredictable in the world of birth photography. And trust me, there is a lot of it. Now, Jen shares so much in this episode. I mean, everything from the photography techniques that she had to learn on the fly. That doesn't sound like fun. Capturing the money shot for birth photography, her views on the intricacies of editing, and Jen also shares a ton about the business side, such as marketing and her approach to client interactions. So with that, why wait? Let's go ahead and get on into today's interview with Jen Pierce. I was reading on your website that 8 of your friends became pregnant at the same time, and then they asked you to do their maternity photos. And that's kind of how you got started in photography, and the rest was history. Is that right?
Yeah, so I have like 8 childhood friends that I have kind of just ran with since I was maybe 10. And they were all of my friends got pregnant like really young. And I don't mean like super young, but like, they got married early, and I was kind of like the late comer. I just got married last year, but one of them got pregnant, and it was like a ripple effect. They all got pregnant within like a year and a half of each other. And so the first person that got pregnant was like, I really want you to do my birth or my maternity. And I was like, dude, no. I know I have a camera, but there is no way that I could ever do that. And she was just so bummed about it. And we kind of didn't talk about it again. And then maybe like a month later, I was laying in the bed and I was scrolling through Facebook. And I don't know if you've heard of Clickin' Moms.
Oh, yeah.
So like there was an ad, I'm telling you, your phones listen to you, but there was an ad for like beginners birth, or not birth, but like maternity and newborn photography. Mm-hmm. And it was like $60. And I was like, you know what? I feel like this is a sign. So I took the course and I texted her, I'm like, hey, I'll do it. I'm going to do it for free because I have no idea how good I'm going to be at this, but let's just run with it. And I think at the time I had like a Rebel T3. I mean, like
entry
the bottom.
Level. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like right after she became pregnant, another one of our friends announced it. Her due date was actually before hers. So I started in July of 2014. And then they all just started getting pregnant. And I was like, oh my God, my year is booked. But it was awesome to be able to practice and not have like super high expectations and just have people that were thankful for the gift. And that was it.
Of course. Do you happen to remember who the teacher was for Clickin' Moms for that?
I want to say, oh my God, I can't remember. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but it was the woman who teaches. She owns a company. I think it's called the Milky Way.
Oh, okay.
And I cannot remember her name off the top of my head, but I believe she was teaching it.
Well, I know that there's been quite a few Clickin' pros on the show, so I didn't know if maybe there would have been that connection. But obviously, you had, as you said, you had that T3i. What was your relationship with photography before they had asked you? Like, why did they think, you know what, we're going to ask Jen?
I feel like I've always just been like a creative person. I have owned multiple businesses. And at the time I got the camera because I owned a boutique and I just wanted to take like flattering photos of the new inventory we were getting in. And I think they just saw how I was photographing that and just kind of ran with it and was like, this will be good. But it wasn't good. It was terrible.
You mean it was terrible looking back on those photos?
Looking back, yeah. Like, I'm like, oh my God, why would you ever hire me? Ugh.
That's funny. So then tell me about, obviously you decided to take this course and start diving into birth photography, and then you did it, right? Like there was no practice before this birth. You just had to jump on in. So tell me what that experience was like.
Yeah, so like there's a really weird thing with birth. Like I feel like everyone wants to get into the industry and they're like, I really want to do a workshop for birth. And I'm like,
workshop.
I don't know how we're going to, I'm like, I don't know how we're going to do that because I can only, there's only so many people allowed in the hospital room. And there's no way that I can have you come in with me and me teach you. And there's really not a way for me to like reenact it unless we get a mom in there who's going to pretend that she's pregnant.
For hours.
But birth is just so unpredictable anyways that like whatever I teach you could never happen again in your career. So like it would kind of be pointless. I could teach you the basics, but I don't know. The first birth I ever shot, like I said, was a friend of mine. And I, at the time, I guess, did no research. And so I showed up as soon as she got to the hospital. Beginner's mistake, do not ever do that. You will be there for hours. And so I think I was there for 17 hours.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, like so long.
Long day.
But, everything happens for a reason. And she had her son on July 22nd. And on July 23rd, I was leaving for a cruise. And I had to leave at 4 a.m. on July 23rd. And so I was like, listen, you have got to make something happen within the next few hours or you will not have your birth documented because I got to go. And it just kind of worked out. Her son was born like an hour later. And I was like, all right, bet. This was amazing. But the first birth I shot, like, I was terrified. So scary. Everything is like super chill. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, go time. Let's do this. Like, hurry up. And I honestly wanted to vomit. But now I like live for that thrill. So it doesn't bother me anymore. But I've had some crazy experiences like in the first couple like births that I shot. It's just weird stuff.
As far as like medical things happening or what?
Yeah. So the first birth I shot was a vaginal delivery. So like, okay, cool. Everything you see in the movies, you're in there. And it all went great. I think I thought it was going to happen a lot quicker than what it did, but it's a lot of hurry up and wait. But the second birth I shot for a friend, the one who originally asked me to do it, was a C-section. So, I mean, you're talking like full hazmat gear, like mask. I mean, fully dressed out.
Yeah. But you were still allowed in the OR, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was insane. Like I like both equally, but for different reasons.
So it was definitely a trial by fire type learning experience.
Yep. You're just like in there, just like, hey, put this mask on and like come in here.
Yeah. What do you think about that course that you took prepared you best for those first few sessions? As you said, I mean, obviously there's things that can go wrong, but what do you think it taught right?
Honestly, like just to be on your toes with everything, kind of go with the flow and use your situation to benefit you. You always have to be thinking on your feet. Nothing's ever going to go as planned, even when it's a shoot just outdoors. And I really, like, one thing that stuck out in my head was she always kept saying, like, when you first start out, take so many photos, overshoot everything, because you don't know what's going to be good.
Yeah, that's very true. Do you find that maybe over the years now you've brought that down, or that's still kind of your philosophy in shooting?
No, I still overshoot everything. And not like so much. Like, I think I would overshoot births and have like 1,200 images at the end. And now I kind of come out with like 600 or 800. So not as extreme as the beginning, but I still like to take shots that like I don't know if they'll be good. And then like I love going through my camera after the fact. I'm like, oh my God, that shot is like amazing. And it's not even something that I planned or thought would be great in the moment.
What do you mean? Do you have an example? Is this like a compositional thing or a lighting thing or?
No. So like, I guess like a composition thing. So like birth, you're always looking for that money shot, like when the baby's first delivered, you know? And so like, I'm waiting for that moment for the doctor to like hold the baby up, Lion King, I'm like, and that's what everybody wants. But so I have this one specific birth that I had last year. It was a natural birth. She had no medicine. So really she could move and do whatever she wanted to do. And after she gave birth, she like was on her knees, like I'm going to draw you a picture right now. But like, you know how the bed sits up and typically your back would be up against it?
Yes.
So she had turned around and was on her knees facing the back part. So when her baby was born, they kind of just like fed the baby like through her legs. And she's like holding the baby. And as most would think, like, okay, this is the moment. Everything cool has already happened. But she did this like really cool thing. And that light is like coming down behind her head. And she's holding this baby. And she like had been pushing for 3 hours. She's just exhausted, and she like threw her head back and just like let out this like big breath. And when she did, the way the light was hitting her, I mean, she just looked like a goddess. And so like I took this shot and didn't think it would be like great, but when I was going through and editing, this shot was like my favorite. And I posted it, and it's crazy because I feel like I'm still not, you know, the creme de la creme, but like when I saw that shot, I was like, oh my God, I have to share this. And it got featured like 22 times in like magazines and different like not podcasts, but like different like feature pages on Instagram. And that was a shot that I like never would have took on any other birth, but she just looked so cool and like regal and like fierce. And I was like, we have to share this.
Yeah. It's funny. Right before this, I had went through your Instagram to do a little bit of research, and you have featured like stories section or whatever. And I looked through, and you're right. I mean, it was that photo time and time.
That photo was like on everything.
Yeah, so many people. And you're right. I think that there was something about that photo which, and I think from a viewer's perspective, and maybe just from like a man's perspective who has 2 kids. Like I was with my wife both times, and she's an OB nurse as well. So it's like I'm kind of in that world. Like I hear a lot of things that she talks about and how long labors can be. And just looking at that photo, you could see that it was like, oh, we did it. You know, like it was this huge buildup, and then that was the moment that she was happy for. And I think that that's probably why it resonated with so many people. And that's interesting that sometimes our best shots are just happy accidents. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it just happened that way. That's great.
I feel like all of my shots are like that. Like sometimes I'm like, is my tuition off? Like, am I like just not? I feel like sometimes maybe I'm so in my head and I think something is going to be the money shot. And then when I'm editing, I'm like, this really is not the shot that I thought it was going to be. It's always something different.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, that's something that I go through as well, but I guess just time will see, you know, and we just learn from those things and figure out what it is. But obviously over time you were doing newborns. How did that progress into what you're shooting today? Because it's more than just birth photography.
Yeah. So birth, I mean, I love birth. I think I've always, this is going to sound like super like creepy, maybe stalkerish a little bit, but kind of like how people are so obsessed with like crime and like murder podcasts and stuff right now. I am just so obsessed with like pregnant women. Like I always tell people, I feel like you could be beautiful your whole life, but I feel like you reach like your peak beauty when you're pregnant. Like I just think you are the most beautiful version of yourself when you're pregnant. And so like I think that kind of just like pulled me into maternity, and I love doing motherhood stuff. And I kind of gradually just got out of newborn because I love babies, but I really just love the women. That's what I feel like is the most beautiful part about it. So I kind of got away from doing newborn. And so birth and maternity and motherhood is really like my little niche and where I feel perfect right now.
So you also do things like families and even weddings as well. That's, I'm assuming, a smaller portion of kind of your main focus?
Yeah, I mean, I love weddings. I think I'm more of an elopement, smaller wedding, different, non-traditional type of vibe. And obviously, so you can't ever accept a birth the same month that you accept a wedding.
Sure.
Because birth could be so crazy and they could end up delivering on that wedding day. But this year, because of COVID, I've been able to accept more weddings because I can't be in the hospital for birth. So it's kind of taken over my schedule a little bit more this year, and I'm booking more. But because birth and maternity are kind of my thing, I really just pick and choose who or what type of wedding I feel like is a vibe.
Gotcha.
My dogs are barking in the background. Sorry.
I can only imagine what kind of a dog it is because it sounds very large.
So she is a lab golden retriever mix, and she is the sweetest dog ever. And if you try to pet her, she would run away because she's a scaredy cat. But she sounds like vicious. We have 3 of them though. So. Yeah,
I was gonna say, I was like, oh my gosh, is somebody literally breaking into your house right at this very moment? I'm glad that that's not the case.
Somebody's probably walking down the street, and she's just like, hey.
Just wants to play. Hey, come over here. That's
hey, come
funny.
over here.
So your main focus is maternity and birth. Those are the two main things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so one thing that I get the sense of when I look at your Instagram, when I look at your photos, is this feeling of connection between everybody, and obviously very, very upfront and visually, your very distinct editing style. So do you want to talk a little bit about first how you build connection while you're, I was going to say on set, but when you're photographing your maternity couples?
Yeah, so I think a lot of what I think of in my head is just natural moments. I don't have any kids yet, but I think about how me and my husband interact with each other when we're in their house and when no one else is around. And, one thing is it's always the little movements. It's always the, I don't know what I was doing last night, but my husband came up and grabbed my hip and just kind of kissed me on my head. And that probably doesn't seem very intimate, but when you are kind of in the setting when it's just you two, that's kind of the most intimate moment, Mm-hmm. And that's what I tell people. I don't ever really pose people. I kind of just work on prompts, and I'll say, grab her somewhere that you could pull her in close to you. Or I love to do this pose where I tell the guy to stand maybe 10 feet behind his wife. And I always say, sneak up behind her and do whatever you would do if she was washing dishes at the sink and you kind of surprised her at the house. And it's always something like they tickle her, they whisper in her ear, they give her a big hug, or they, me and my husband, my whole family has done this my whole life. And it's kind of funny, but my grandpa started this with me where he would tell me when I was a kid, give me a kiss. And I lean in and give him a kiss and he licked the side of my face. And so my husband does that now. And so I have a couple clients who do that. And it's so intimate, but it's personal for them. And it kind of works. It's just they're kind of the way that they connect, and it's funny, and their natural selves. That's what I try to do is I try to just give a prompt that would be something broad, but maybe super unique to you as a couple.
Sure, and that makes sense. But that was a great answer. I want to know more about maybe when you just have the mom in the photos, because, again, looking at your Instagram, while a lot of the photos do have him and her together, I feel like a majority of them are more maternity portraits, and just they look very strong and very proud. So how do you bring this feeling up when, as somebody whose wife has been pregnant twice, I know that they can feel oftentimes insecure about themselves.
Right. So typically what I do is, and this is crazy to think of, and I know people are probably wait, you do what? So sometimes before shoots, especially if I've gotten a new client closet item, like a dress or something, and I haven't seen how it's going to photograph yet, what I will do is I'll put the dress on and I make a belly of a pillows or whatever. And I kind of just stand in front of my mirror and kind of pose myself or pull my hair back or touch what would be a belly, or move or kind of move the dress and what would make me feel comfortable if that's what my body looked like. So when I'm posing them, I'll say, rub your belly, or just pull your hair back a couple of times. Mm-hmm. Or my favorite thing that a pregnant woman does, and they don't even think that it's cool in the moment, but when they're standing with their profile and holding their belly with the one hand, my favorite thing to have them do with their empty hand is to just run their hands through their hair. And it just looks so amazing. They just look so carefree, but gorgeous in that moment. They're just messing with their hair, but they're holding their bump, and it just looks so cool to me.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, yeah, I've never been pregnant before, obviously, but I can see those photos in my head, and I can see me wanting to put those photos of me on the wall. Do you ever take pictures of yourself with the pillow underneath the dress?
I will do a whole video. When I get new client closet stuff, I will come out and I'm you guys, this is the dress I got. It fits maternity, to kind of show my clients, because they'll see a dress on me and they're but you're so tiny. And I'm but I bought this dress for maternity. It's going to work. Just trust me.
Right.
So I have to show them that it's going to work. Oh,
that's great. I bet that really helps out their confidence and questions. Yeah. So what about now this editing style? Because as I said, it's these photos are not straight out of camera. Mm-hmm. Work is being done to your images.
Right.
So can you describe your editing style to me?
I think that I have been a lot of things, but from the start, what I really was drawn to was the moody, warm photos. I've never been a light and airy person. If you asked me how to shoot light and airy, I would come up with nothing. It would probably be overexposed and just washed out and terrible. But I think I started out a little too dark, and now I'm kind of in this weird thing where I like it to be moody, but I also enjoy bright whites and like pops of yellow to make it warm. And that's really what I look for. Like, I don't want it to be so dark and moody where it feels, I don't know, underexposed. But I like that type of warmth that makes it, I don't know, intimate.
Yeah.
Just kind of warm and fuzzy inside. And that's kind of just what I roll with. I dress a lot of my clients. And even if I don't dress them, I'm like, please wear neutrals or earth tones because they photograph well. I'm not a bright person. Like, if you showed up wearing like fluorescent colors, it would not work with my vibe. I'd be like, we got to change you. We got to put something different on you. But everything I try to do, I like a lot of grain, and that's something that I didn't like, or I guess I shied away from in the beginning because I thought grain meant that you weren't great and that the photo wasn't clear.
Isn't that crazy?
But I love grain now. It gives it like a vintage, like authentic, just raw feel, and I love it. I think it's so cool.
Mm-hmm. So how does that develop over time? As you said, in the beginning, when you didn't like these things, there's certain things about what you do now you didn't like, and now you love it, and it's part of who you are. So how does that develop over time?
I think that I was trying to fit myself in a box when I first started out, and I was trying to be everything that everyone else wanted. And I was like, I don't love this. And so I just started editing how I liked it. And I was like, if people like it, whatever. But I mean, I still kind of feel like that now. So I just shot a wedding this past weekend, and there was this photo that I did of the bride and the groom in front of this vintage car, and the veil was over both of them, and the lights were on this car, and it was just like this really cool, like vintage vibe. And I was like, I really want this just to be like this like yellow hue. And I was kind of scared to post it because I was like, I don't want people to be like, this is so over edited. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't even look real. It's too warm. It's too dark. It's too this. And I posted it, and everyone was like, oh my God, you did that. And I was like, you guys like this? Because I really thought that this was not going to be a hit. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think just stick to what you like. Sometimes I edit something that's so super warm, and I think that it may be a little bit like kind of teetering having jaundice, but I just like it. But then other times I'll shoot and it's like super foggy and there's no sunlight, and I really like that like grayish blue color that the image pulls, and I'll go with that. So I bounce back and forth between both, but I mean, I just like the moodiness of it all.
Do you think that this is something that happens just by accident, like by sliding the wrong slider, or do you think that it comes from seeing others work and trying to figure out how you can do it yourself?
I pull a lot from other people's work. I have this album on my phone, and it's called just Inspo. And so what I do is I pull from every photographer, and it may not even be like color. It may be like, I like this because there was grain in it, or I like this because it looks soft, or just something weird like that. And a lot of the people that are in the group, if you ever put their photos on one feed together, nothing would match.
Right.
Like, it would not be cohesive at all. But there's different things, and I know why I like certain things in their photos. But I will say, being confident in how warm I was making things, I saw India Earl's like Instagram feed, and I was like, you know what? She literally does not care. She does whatever she wants, whatever fits the image. And I was like, I'm going to start doing this. I'm just going to, if I feel like it needs to be warm, it'll be warm. And if I feel like it doesn't, then I'll pull it back a little. Mm-hmm. But it was definitely pulling from other people's stuff and realizing that you don't have to fit into this box or fill this expectation where everything has to be so cohesive and warm all the time. It could be whatever.
I love it. So just to recap there, see something that you like, figure out how you can apply it to your own work, and then it's just guess and check.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. Very cool. Switching gears here a little bit, on your Instagram, I actually read a post of yours that you just bought your first photography studio. Is that right?
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment. It said that you went from taking your photography business to a hobby to six figures in just 3 years. Now that's literally the dream for like so many photographers listening right now. Mm-hmm. What do you think is let me rephrase, what is the one thing that you did that you think contributed most to helping you reach that goal? And why do you think so many other photographers fail to reach such a high level that you have?
So I have even thought about this question a million times myself, because sometimes I sit in the moment and I'm like, how the hell did we get here? But you know what? I honestly feel that it's just being authentic. The way that I came to this realization is we used to have a neighbor that we became really good friends with, and they are not from here. They're from Oklahoma. And we were sitting at a table one night, and she said something about the amount of likes that a photo got that I posted of myself. And I said, yeah, it's so crazy. I get more likes on a photo that I post of me on my feed than I do of anything else. Mm-hmm. And she was like, yeah, because people can relate to you. And I was like, you know what? You're right. So what I started doing was I would start posting about me and my husband, and not all the time, but just, if they haven't seen my face in a while, I'll throw a photo of me or me and my husband, or something that, pertains to me. Or even if the caption is a photo of someone else, or if the photo is someone else, but the caption is about me or something that I'm going through in the moment, it kind of just, people can relate to me. And I really think that's how my name got out there. But also, while I say being authentic is just doing stuff that is absolutely crazy that other people aren't doing. And there's a lot of photographers in my community, and we all get along really well. And I think the reason we all fit and are profitable is because we're all ourselves, and there's something unique that we all bring to the table. And I'm the only person who does like naked maternity photos. So I was just like, hey, do you guys want to get naked in a field? And they were like, cool, yeah, let's do it. And now people are like, if I want crazy maternity photos, then I just go to Jen because I know she'll do it.
Yeah. When I think in my head being authentic to yourself, I don't want to say that I think that the word authentic is synonymous with safe. Does that make sense? I feel like maybe that's just who I am, because I don't really share a lot of things maybe about my personal life, or I've just kind of always been that way. I've always been more of an observer than somebody who puts things out there, I guess. So for somebody like me, that's kind of a struggle. So can you give me some examples of how maybe some of your most authentic posts that really resonated with your audience?
Yeah, so I have 3 off the top of my head. So one, I would say work related. I follow a lot of photographers, and I think vice versa. And I'll just post sometimes. I know it might look like we got everything, all our ducks in a row over here, but I'm about to lose my mind. And I'll just make a post hey, I'm really struggling right now. Everyone else who feels like you're in a rut, keep pushing. We're almost there. I just made a post the other day, and I was like, you guys, this busy season rush, I'm over it. I love you guys. Creatively, I want to be there, but it's the end of the year, and I'm just I'm checked out. I'm burned out. Mm-hmm. A lot of photographers are I am on that same page. I'm there. I'm here with you, whatever. So that's how I guess I relate to my photography people, because I'll just post about things like that, or posting how this was a hobby for me, and now where financially what it does for my family. And I don't ever, I always feel when I post things like that, I don't ever want it to come from a cocky or overly confident style, but I still feel at some points, I kind of doubt myself. I'm how, I said, how the hell did we get here? And I just share with people, I literally just shared my work a million times over, and this is how I did it. And I share it from a standpoint of you can do this too. Mm. And so photographers, I feel it resonates with them. But another big thing is, since birth is my birth and maternity are my thing. Ever since I got married, all of my clients and the people who follow me are oh my God, we can't wait until you have a baby. We know, when's it going to be, blah, 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 blah. And there's so many people who ask all the time. And so me and my husband sat down when quarantine first started this year, and we were all right, August, it's go time. We're going to start trying. We're going to do this. And I know for most people, it would be a very scary thing to announce that hey, we're trying to do this, because, let's all be honest, you have kids. It could not work the first time, or you could get pregnant and something could happen. Mm-hmm. But I have always been a person where I find comfort in telling my story. And so I just posted August 1st, hey, we're starting to try, blah, 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 blah. If you have any advice for me, please share. And I put up a questionnaire thing too. And
floodgates opened.
Flooded with just this is what we did. This is what we didn't. This is what you shouldn't do. And so that happened. And then I think like a month or two later, we got put on like fertility medication, and I shared that as well. And it was just like, again, other people were like, I had to do this, and I did this fertility medication, or I did the same one, and this is how it did to me, and blah, 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 blah. And it helped me mentally, but it also helped people resonate with like, hey, I'm going to follow her because she is a normal person who goes through the same exact things that we went through, and she just documents stuff. And then recently, I always like my friends will always say, every time I log on to Facebook, you are the first person at the top of my feed because you post so much. And they're like, how are you always on your phone? And I'm like, I'm really not, though. I am a little bit, but not as much as people think I would be. And so recently I was like, you know what? There's so many people who are following me. This is what I'm going to do. I started a Venmo challenge. Have you heard of this?
I hadn't before I checked out your Instagram and your Facebook recently preparing for this. This is amazing. I'm excited to hear more about this.
So this is like a TikTok thing. I cannot take credit for this idea, but it went viral on TikTok. A lot of people were doing Venmo challenges to where basically you ask all of your followers to donate whatever they can, 50 cents, $1, $50, whatever they want. And you let it build up. You have like a time frame. You can donate between this time and this time. And some people just give it away, or they donate it to a server or someone in need or whatever it may be. And so this year I was like, I kind of want to try this. And I honestly did not think we would raise over $500. But I was like, if we do, I'll split it between two people. And so the first night that we did it, and this just tells you like the power of social media, but the first night that I posted it, my phone, like, are you familiar with the Venmo, like, ding whenever you get money?
Yes, yeah.
Oh my God, my phone was like, cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. And my husband was like, you got to cut it off. Like, seriously? We're eating dinner. It's just like, it's like, cha-ching. And yeah, like people who are, in California and Vegas who are 3 hours behind us, we're trying to sleep and my phone is still like, cha-ching, cha-ching. So it was just insane, the power of social media and the money that we raised to donate to these people. But sharing the videos of donating to them, that was like another thing where it was just like, hey, I'm going to be vulnerable for a second and just show you these people and kind of what the experience looked like. And it just, so many people were sharing my business page with that thing. And, it's just, again, people relating.
Yeah. So while I love this idea, right, obviously we're helping out others less fortunate, was there any sort of inkling in your head of like, I can use this for marketing, like for my business? Because as you said, you're getting like all these shares to your page, which obviously has been really helpful for you. Is this something, and I love the idea of giving back and also promoting your own website. So I love that idea. Is that something that you think that you can implement even more in the future going forward?
Yeah, I feel like in my head, I always play devil's advocate. And the one thing I didn't want people to think is that like I was doing this for clout or whatever, And so I was just like, the only reason I'm posting it here and not just my regular page is because I share a lot on my business pages, but I kind of keep like my regular social media locked down. Like I don't have a lot of followers. I share a lot of memes, but I don't know. I like to keep my people tight. And so when I shared it on there, I was like, I really just hope this reaches like more people than I can think of off the top of my head. But using my platform to knock two birds out with one stone, it kind of was just like a cool thing to do. And I also did a thing where like whoever donated, for every $1 you donated, that would go in as an entry and you could win a free session with me. Wow. I didn't really do it so much as like, I want you to advertise my business. I wanted people to donate more so that we could give more. And so that was just like an incentive to get people to put money in the pot, basically. But I hope like in the future, I know me and my husband definitely want to do it every single year because seeing the look on people's faces was way better than receiving any gift that I could have gotten. And I hope that like in the future, I can come up with other things that just help me give back to the community by using my platform.
Oh, that is so great to hear. That is such a cool idea. And I mean, obviously helps. And I'm going to post a link to your videos as well in the show notes here so that people can see really that power that, these people receiving this money, how much it changes for them. I love that.
Yeah.
So continuing on to talk about marketing, obviously that's a form of marketing right there. That's going to get your name out there. And while it may not convert directly to sales, still obviously a very powerful form of marketing. So aside from that, what is one of the more powerful forms of marketing that you're doing right now that's working for you?
I tell everyone this. And I wish people would understand it as like much as I understand it. But that hashtag, the hashtags on Instagram, I'm telling you, that is how I get all of my out of town clients.
Really?
All of them. I got to shoot with a Braves player this year from a hashtag. His wife found me from a hashtag. And I went to Atlanta, shot with them. That was amazing. I got to shoot when I was just in Ohio shooting like we were discussing, and that was with an Instagram influencer. And she found me from a hashtag because she lives in Columbus, Ohio, and I live in Columbus, Georgia. And I just happened to tag Columbus maternity photographer, and it popped up for her thing.
Yeah.
And she found, but I tell people, like, this is how I get 95% of my out of town clients, because all it takes is people to type it in on Instagram and all your work is right there for them to view. And I have Wedding Wire and I have all these other things, but the hashtags on Instagram are how I book most of my people.
So, wow, this is a world that I'm not in at all. So let's say for this woman in Columbus, Ohio, she found you through an Instagram through a hashtag. And then whatever it was that she found you on a photo, was there some sort of call to action to reach out to you, or did she just do this on her own? Do you have any strategy behind Instagram that helps get people to contact you?
I think she just messaged me. I really think that's how it happened. I think she just saw it and direct messaged me, and we kind of went from there. But Instagram is all about what is new for them. So like reels are new right now. So they show them in feeds more, and it's a great way to advertise and do videos and have it look like it's live and it's not just a photo that you're showing. So I try to do a lot of those, and it can be like silly stuff. Like right now people are doing how they get ready for a shoot, or I've done like what I need for a shoot. And it's just things that like, it seems like a little bit of information in 30 seconds of a time, but for beginner photographers, it's amazing to know.
Wow. That is something that, again, I haven't dipped my toes into the water too much of Instagram, but kind of how you just shared and broke down how that all worked out for you. And obviously the success that you've had with it, I think that it would be ridiculous for me to not give that a try. So thank you again so much for sharing all that. That was fantastic stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome.
For those photographers who are still new, they are out there right now, they're wondering, how can I get to where Jen is, right? They see you, they follow along with you, and they just got their first camera. What advice would you give to a new, smart, driven photographer who's about to set out on their own creative journey?
I think it comes with it sounds like a lot, but it's like once you know it, it is so simple. My first thing would be, you have to know shutter, ISO, and aperture, because I think that's where a lot of people mess up in the beginning. There's misfocused shots, and they think, just for example, I was selling my camera, and someone messaged me and said, can you send me some photos that this camera took?
Oh, right.
And I was like, that doesn't really sell the camera though. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's the lens that was on it that made it look that way. I mean, the camera just composed it all, but it's not like I don't know. So I would tell people, like, it's never about the equipment you have. I think if someone gave me a Rebel today, I could still produce the same quality work that I have right now. The only reason I have the camera I do now is because I like the focal points and, I like new things. But I would definitely say, like, learn your camera first. Learn how to shoot in manual for sure. Figure out what you think you want your style to be. And it doesn't have to be you don't have to be there yet, but just have an idea. Like I said, I still work on my style every day. I think it changes like every 3 to 6 months. There's something that I don't like about work that I posted, or it doesn't look effortless, or there's something random I don't like about it, but I always knew that I wasn't light and airy. So figure out what you know that you're not and work on the things that you think that you are. And then always figure out what your clientele is, because everybody's not your clientele. I know a lot of people that I'm friends with will say, like, all of your clients are like the same style. They're your vibe. They're like, they dress the same way you do. And I'm like, that's intentional, because I know how to photograph them. I know your style. I know what you like. And when it's something else, I feel like I'm pushed up against a wall. I don't know what to do.
Oh, that's really interesting. I hear from so many photographers who kind of go both ways. They're like, photograph a person who's exactly like you because you're going to be able to get in their head very well. And other people who are like, photograph those who are, you know, above you, or like whatever you want your ideal client to be. I'm definitely in the same camp as you there, where I would rather have somebody very similar to me. It just makes things a whole lot easier to get along with. When it comes to the developing your style, though, I'm a little bit interested into maybe hearing about what it was 3 or 6 months ago that you decided, maybe I don't like this, that you decided to change. How small are these changes, or how big are these changes that you're making to your photography?
I really loved unposed photos. I think recently I found out that I really love the small details of things. And I let go of posing brides and moms so like traditional and stiff, and it's like what I like to call, and this I don't know if this will translate to anyone else, but it's like, I call it static posing. It's just stiff. It's very cliche. It's very predictable. And I stopped doing that. Like I love when moms are in poses that it's stuff that they would regularly do. I recently just had a maternity client, and I was like, I'm not going to tell you to do anything the entire time we're shooting. All I want you to do is what you would normally do at home. You know, move your hair from side to side, put your hair behind your ear, rub your belly occasionally, push your shirt back, things like that. And so 6 months ago, I was editing and posing in a way that just seemed, it didn't look real to me. It looked very posed, a little uncomfortable, and just stiff. And so now I go into it and I'm like, just keep moving the whole time. Move back and whatever, just keep moving. And that's when they look the most natural, when they're moving or playing with their kids or throwing them in the air or whatever it may be. But then like editing wise, I was doing this thing where I was always moving that clarity slide all the way. Like I wanted it to be so like rich and clear and defined. And now I'm like, I kind of like when it looks hazy, and I kind of like when it looks just soft and not so hard, I guess is the word I'm like looking for. And so I try to like back away from defining things so much and kind of just making it flowy. If that even makes sense.
No, it does. It does. That's something that I hear a lot from new photographers, is that that's very hard for them to make people not look as rigid in their poses. So you want to dive a little bit deeper into when you say just keep moving and whatnot. The idea of showing up to a session and telling, for me, a couple, like, I'm not going to tell you what to do. That's terrifying to me. And I can only imagine that in their heads, they're thinking, wait, what?
They're like, what?
Yeah, we're so awkward in front of the camera.
But you know, the people who say they are awkward in life look the best on camera when you keep them moving. It's so weird to me. And I'm like, you're not awkward. You're only awkward when people tell you how to pose that's not natural to you. Wow. That's the only time you look awkward. So I had this couple, and they were like, we are so awkward. We are just not like coordinated at all. And I was like, I want you to do something for me. We had like craft beer. They each had a craft beer in their hand, and they were holding hands. And I was like, I want you to run towards me. And they were like, we're about to look so silly, so ridiculous. But that was like their favorite photo, because they were running like they would normally run. And they looked like they were having fun. And the photo was just funny, and they looked natural. But like another thing I do is when people show up, and I've had this happen a couple of times, and it's always with men. The women are usually like, okay, I'll go with the flow. But it's always men who are like, you want me to do what? And I'll get there, and they look at me the whole time, and I'm like, the whole shoot, if I can tell you anything, first thing I'm going to tell you is, do not look at me at all. And they're like, what? And they come here and they think that, you know, in my head, and I always say this, two things I always tell my clients, it's literally like verbatim. I need a t-shirt that says this. But two things I always say is, one, we are not about to 1998 prom pose this entire photo session. Like, we're not going to like hold each other like around our waist, you know? And then two is, I always say, we're not doing Sears photo poses. Like, you know, when your mom would take you to Sears and you sit and you look at the camera the whole time. I'm not going to pose you 17 different ways where you're looking at the camera the entire time. It's just not going to happen. I mean, that's so boring to me. Would you want to look at your album where you may be in different poses, but everyone is always looking at the camera?
No.
And also, when you have little kids, that's never going to happen. They're never going to look the whole time. So I just tell people, like, when you get to your photo shoot, we're going to have fun. I want you to play with your kids. I want you to throw them in the air. I want you to like swing them around by their hands. I want you to laugh at them the whole time, tickle them, make them laugh, throw them in the air, whatever it takes, but don't look at me. And they're like, this doesn't make any sense, but okay, I'll go with it. And the first one of my clients, they're regulars of mine now, but first time we ever shot together, I said, I want you to look at your wife and I want you to get forehead to forehead with her. And he looked at me and he was like, are you trying to make me look stupid? And I was like, I promise I'm not.
He said,
and then, And then the second time I shot with him, he was like, I really thought that you were trying to make us look crazy. And then I saw the photo. He was like, and it was like my favorite because we looked so intimate, like we really were in love with each other. And I was like, see? But when you tell people to look at each other, the first thing they do is they like lean back and they do this weird chin thing. And I'm like, don't do that. You have 4 chins right now. So
that's too funny. I love it. Just continue to move them around, continue to just give them activities to do together. And that should keep them loose enough, huh?
Yeah. And, it's always that little bitty movement that they do when they think I'm not looking or when I'm looking at my camera, but I catch them. And it's always like the dad where he like squeezes the mom's hand or pulls her in for a kiss, or sometimes he'll tuck her hair back. And I always say, hey, can you do that again really quick? And it kind of gives them confidence because they're like, wait, what I did you thought was cool? And I'm like, yeah, can you just like push her hair back one more time? Or they'll like rub her belly and I say like, hey, can you do that again? Or I love to do GIFs or GIFs, whatever people call them. I call them GIFs.
I call them GIFs.
And so I say, I'm going to do a close-up if you just rubbing mom's belly. So can you just do it like a couple times? I'm going to do like 50 frames. And they're like, they don't get it in the moment. But then when I post it and it's just the dad moving his hand up and down, they're like, oh my God, that was like such an intimate moment for us. And I'm like, that was the point.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Jen, I don't know if there's a better way to end this podcast than that. I don't think that we can top that right there. As I said, that's one of the biggest complaints of many new photographers is that all of their subjects look very posed. They look very stiff. And everything that you just shared there the last 10 minutes or so is pure gold. And I hope that people go back and listen to that for sure. Yeah. So I have to thank you so much for sharing everything that you did today. But before I let you go, can you share with the listeners where they can find you online?
So I am on Facebook and Instagram as Jen Pierce Photography. Pierce is in like pierce your ear, spelled the same exact way. And my website is www.jenpiercepics.com.
I really hope that you enjoyed today's interview. I know I sure did. I had 3 main takeaways from this interview with Jen Pierce. The first one was just to stay authentic to your style. It is essential, of course, to stick to what you personally appreciate in photography because it is your photography. You're the photographer. And it's your unique style that, well, you got to know that it's going to evolve over time and that it can be influenced by both accidental discoveries. Maybe you're out shooting and you accidentally do something. I've done this before. And then you realize, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. And then you start doing it more. And influenced by just observing others and how they work. But knowing that you are going to make changes in your work, in your photography, and that's fine. That's expected. But when you do so knowing, oh, I'm doing this because this is the right decision for me, not just because maybe it's trendy, so that you can always remain true to your vision. Takeaway number 2 was the importance of mastering your equipment and just understanding the foundation of photography. I know that today's cameras are phenomenal, and you could probably get a number of great shots if you just went out shooting in auto. But when you find yourself in a dimly lit, or worse, terribly lit hospital room, the camera is going to freak out. It is going to have a real hard time getting images the way that you see them in your head. So understanding the basics of photography, the basics of shutter speed, ISO, and aperture is just incredibly important. So that when you are in those situations, dimly lit room, terribly lit room, you can use your skill set to create an image that is uniquely you. Because we all know that an image isn't just solely about the camera. It's a result of the skill set used by the photographer to capture that image. And lastly, it's to engage and understand your clients. You have to understand that not every client is going to align with your preferred style. But when you learn who your client is and what is important to them, this is going to help you to make just better decisions later on. not only the types of images that they may want to see posted online so that you can, of course, attract more of them, but also the info that they would find most helpful for wherever they're at in, say, their birth journey or whatever journey they're on for whatever style of photographer that you are, so that when you send it to them or when you share it, they feel like, wow, this photographer is reading my mind. This is exactly what I wanted to know. And when you can get somebody to feel that way, they're never going to look for another photographer. Remember, your photography journey is about progress, not perfection. So keep learning, keep growing, and remember to keep evolving as a photographer as well. And your passion will shine through in your work. That is it. Until next week, remember, the more that you shoot today, the better of a photographer you will be tomorrow. Talk soon.
Thank you for listening to the Beginner Photography Podcast. If you enjoy the show, consider leaving a review in iTunes. Keep shooting, and we'll see you next week.